Tabula rasa.
Tabula rasa. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Silo is yet another dystopian future type thing.
Silo is not kind to the characters it introduces.
Silo is if Snowpiercer was on the train and the train wasn't moving.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Falling Towers, Watch the First podcast, the podcast in which we make references that nobody gets.
So that you don't have
to. Maybe people know Snowpiercer. I don't. I know Pierce Brosnan. Today we're doing a review of Silo on Apple TV because we're smack dab in the middle of Sci-Fi Month. So if you've got a sci-fi show you'd like us to review, in the comments below, make the suggestion. Like today would have been WTF, Silo. Parenthetically, you'd put Apple TV so we know where to find it. Please give this video a like. Please give us a 5-star rating. If you're listening in, make sure you subscribe to this channel and leave us some reviews. Leave us some comments and suggestions. We really appreciate that. And then we will review the show that you suggest. Maybe.
Or maybe not.
Hey, everybody. You'll never guess who's with us. It is writer, director, cinematographer, and professional nerd all rolled up into one, Scott Baker.
Hey, what's happening? Glad to be here.
We're recording a show.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
It's finally happening.
We also have the vice provost at Duke University. He's also an occasional Star Trek science advisor. It's Dr. Mohammed Noor.
Hello, always a pleasure to be on Falling Towers. Watch the first of things.
And my name is Ryan T. Husk, and this is my Megadeth shirt du jour.
Mm-hmm.
You can always find me wearing a Megadeth shirt. I don't have as many as I used to have because I had a Twitter girlfriend. Did I say Twitter girlfriend? I meant ex-girlfriend. Get it?
Oh.
That used to steal all my shirts, and most of which were Megadeth shirts, and I never got them back, and they all got ruined and had makeup on them anyway. Anyway, the point is,
Megadeth concert.
Woo! 20 years ago, when I was 8. Have I seen him since then? I don't know. Anyway,
math checks out.
Yeah. The point is, don't ever ask that question again, Mohammed. How dare you? So anyway, the point is, everybody, that we're going to review this show, and you're going to love it. But I don't know where to go from here, Mohammed.
I think we're in a predicament about where to go, meaning that we get to predict what each of us thought of this show after watching it, without revealing what we thought about it. This is Ryan's favorite part.
It is my favorite part, but I was watching you squirm there. You felt you were kind of lost like I was.
Yeah, it took me a second. Like, oh yeah.
So it is my
not
favorite.
Time for the punches yet.
No. Scott Baker and I have known each other. Actually, we just figured this out recently, Scott. You and I have known each other for about 9 years now. I think it's right around there. 9 years.
14, yeah. Mm-hmm.
We met on a very hot day on the set of a sci-fi show called Nobility with lots of cool sci-fi actors.
Mm-hmm.
Mohammed and I have known each other pretty well for quite a few years. Mohammed and Scott have known each other kind of well for a couple years, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to predict or attempt to predict what each other thought. Mohammed, I predict you're going to have some qualms. You're going to have some things you liked, but overall, you're going to be warm on it. I think overall, this show is kind of your speed. I feel like overall, the show was kind of good. You're going to be right around the 7 or 8 region. Scott Baker, you're a big-time sci-fi aficionado. You've made some sci-fi thrillers of your own. You do a lot of things like that. Horror, sci-fi, drama. So you're the perfect guy to review this show. Doesn't necessarily mean you liked it. I think that you are lukewarm on this. You're going to give it right around the 6 or 6.5 range. For me, Mohammed, what do you got for us?
So for you, I would predict what you were saying about Scott. I think you're probably in the 6. I think you liked it, but I think you maybe found it confusing. Like there was a lot of building and a lot of things happening. It was hard to keep it all in your head. That's my guess for you, Scott. I think you loved it. I mean, I guess you actually like this a lot. That's my prediction. I think just given that your background, I think you will embrace this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Scott. Okay. So since you like this kind of show, you must like this one. We'll find out.
It checks out.
Maybe.
Yeah.
What are your predictions?
We'll see.
So I think, I think Ryan is less warm on it because there was very little humor in this, and Ryan wants something that's going to make him laugh a bit, and there wasn't room for it in the show, but they didn't do it. So I think that's gonna take Ryan down in the 5-6 range probably. I think Muhammad likes it because it was a very sort of like philosophical thinky sort of piece. Not to say that Ryan doesn't like philosophical thinky things, but
I don't like to think at all.
That's not true.
So I
know you like documentaries.
Maybe in the 8-ish range, So yeah, my thoughts.
Interesting. This is all good stuff. I'm really looking forward to revealing these things. But before we do that, everybody, you make your predictions at home right now in the live chat. Type away in the comments below. Type away. Do you think Ryan the Megadeth shirt wearer liked it? Do you think the professor liked it? Do you think the aficionado Scott Baker liked it? Let us know. Make your predictions. While you're doing that, take your time. No rush. Dr. Noor is going to tell us what this show is even about. He's going to have a big summary for us all to understand.
Yeah, exactly. You have lots of time to write out your predictions here. So, living in the enclosed 100-plus floor silo has been tough on the community for the past 140 years, but still better than the radioactive wasteland outside. No one knows why they are there or who built the silo originally, since all records were lost in the rebellion 140 years ago. But anyone who asks to leave, even once, must do so. Inside, Allison Becker and her husband, the sheriff, are excited that they will be permitted to try to have a child in the coming year. Allison meets a computer geek who has found a relic ancient hard drive, illegal to have, by the way, and they discover plans to the silo on it, as well as hints that maybe the outside is not as bad as it looks from the window. When Allison can't conceive for the whole year, she ends up slicing into her abdomen and finds that the doctor never actually removed her birth control capsule, which was put there by the government. Given the secrets and the deceit, Allison asks to go outside. We see her collapse, but she seems to signal that outside is not what it appears. 2 years later, the sheriff has met someone who convinces him more of this giant conspiracy, and he too is now asked to go outside.
Woo, doggy. Well, everybody.
There.
That was as I remember watching it.
Yeah,
good. It was accurate.
Nice. Good stuff.
Pretty accurate. Yeah.
But what's next, Muhammad?
This is my favorite part of the show. This is what I call expectation, where we spend a little bit of time on what you expected before seeing the show, and a lot more time on what you get in when you actually watch the show. Or as Ryan likes to say, we compare and contrast what we expected with what we got.
I love saying that.
Yeah. I hope Muhammad's got insurance for his camera, because I feel like one of these days he's just going to punch that thing.
He's violent.
One of these days. Hasn't happened yet.
So let's get into it, everybody. Dr. Noor, before you watch this first episode of Silo on Apple TV entitled Freedom Day, kind of like Freedom Fries, what did you expect, if anything?
Sure. So I'll answer it two ways, because I had seen this first episode before. Before I'd seen it the first time, which wasn't that long, before I'd seen it the first time, the reason I watched it was because my PhD student, Sarah Marion, she said, I've been watching this show and I think you would love it. It's really good. It seems really your style. And she explained that these people living in asylum is dystopian. So I knew about that much about it, but she didn't really go into any more detail on what was in there. And I remember at the time pulling it up and being like, oh, Rashida Jones is in it. And I remember her, of course, from Parks and Rec. I mean, you guys may remember her from that as well. So that drew me into watching it the first time. This time, obviously I'd already seen it and it wasn't that long ago. So I had a pretty good idea what was going to be happening in this episode and what I was going to think of it. So I'll leave it at that. So I don't want to give any spoilers.
Never seen Parks and Rec. WTF Parks and Rec, everybody. I think that's a sitcom, right?
It is definitely a sitcom. It's hilarious.
Very good. Yeah.
You guys don't give it away in case
I said the show, not necessarily the pilot. Pilot may suck.
That's true.
True.
Scott Baker, before you watched this first episode of Silo, what did you expect, if anything?
Absolutely nothing. When you told me about the show, I hadn't seen any trailers. I hadn't seen any promotional materials about it. I don't think I even knew it existed. So I saw the image that's behind you, Ryan. I saw that image right before, and I sent it to you, and I was like, "Is this the show that I'm supposed to be watching?" And you confirmed it, and I hit play, and I started watching it. So I went in tabula rasa into this thing, which I enjoy doing. Even if there's like a movie coming out that I know I want to see, I try to avoid all the trailers and stuff because I'm really good at sort of like seeing a trailer and being like, oh yeah, that's the part where this, and then you can kind of pick out the whole arc of the show in the trailer, and it's really like a spoiler for me. So it was actually nice to go in like I assumed it was sci-fi, but that was it. I knew nothing at all about it. I didn't even read a description. So
wow.
You know what's the worst at that is romantic comedies. When you're going to the movies in the movie theater and they have a trailer, it's like a 5-minute trailer, and you're like, I've literally just watched the entire movie now. Yeah. I know everything.
The funny scenes are all there.
They show not just the funny scenes, but the arc too. Then they show the people getting together, and then they fight, and then they get married at the end. I'm like, you just gave me a summary, not a trailer. I've seen the movie. Anyway,
yeah.
This show was highly touted. We've gotten a lot of suggestions on it, most notably from our good friend David Gregory. He suggested we watch Silo. So, David Gregory, this one is for you. And I did not really. That's all I knew about it was a couple murmurs here or there. By the way, Apple TV needs to step it up. If Scott Baker never even knew that it existed, and he's pretty tapped in, put a little bit more marketing into it. And I think I've only heard of it because people suggested it. Other than that, I don't know if I'd really heard of it. Don't know Rashida Jones or any of those people like that, or Parks and Rec. So I was starting at a very baseline, that Latin thing that Scott Baker said that I didn't understand.
Tabula rasa.
Tabula rasa. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Blank slate.
Sounds like a Ferrari type. Anyway, so that's where we are with that. But here's the key, everybody. Pencils down. You've got all your predictions in because you're about to find out if we did actually like or not like this show. Dr. Noor, what did you actually get?
Each time you mentioned Parks and Rec, I would hear the music to it in my head. And I was like, oh, I love that show. So I'll give two answers again, like from the first time versus this time. The first time I saw it, I enjoyed it. This time I saw it, I enjoyed it a lot. Because I think what happened the first time, I was a little confused. I wasn't quite clear on what was happening and things like that. And there are a lot of things seeded that I didn't get. And now having more context, I get a lot more. So some specifics, not in terms of the seeding, but I thought it was a very interesting backstory. Obviously, there's a lot of dystopian shows out there, but this one was a little bit different from the rest in that this concept of not knowing why they're there and not knowing how they got in there, as opposed to just usually in a dystopian show, everybody knows exactly what happened. There was a war and everybody got put in, something like that. That was kind of interesting. And then adding to it this political piece of, everything has been destroyed. It's unclear really who destroyed all those records. The deep conspiracy was woven in very well. I like the musical scoring too to it. I mean, I think the first time I watched it, I didn't love it, but after a while it grew on me, and now I really like the musical scoring to it. There's just a lot of seeds to it. You can tell that throughout the show there's a lot of seeds, but you don't know which of them are important seeds and which are just kind of like, oh, this is a seed just for episode 3 for some little side plot that's going to come up. But again, like the first time I saw it, I did find it a little bit confusing. I wasn't quite sure what was happening, and there was a lot of people like, okay, what does judicial mean? What is, some of those things, the words that were just kind of tossed out there, like we're supposed to just get what that is. But I mean, honestly, it's more natural because I mean, in a show there wouldn't be a judicial. That is the group that when something goes bad, they, it was well played and well acted. And I remember also being very confused the first time. I was like, wait, so Rashida Jones is dead? Are we going to see her anymore? Or is she like just gone from the show? I'll stop there.
Interesting. Good question.
Yeah. It's kind of funny how the main character die at the end of the first episode. Like, okay.
It can.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens though. Scott Baker, what did you actually get, by the way?
So I was really torn because, like you and Muhammad both mentioned, this is my kind of show. This is like exactly the kind of thing. Like I like Snowpiercer. If you haven't seen it, it's a really great sort of dystopian film. 1984, Handmaid's Tale, The Island, all those kind of things, and I felt like this was in that world of, like, it was definitely that kind of story. And I was torn between whether I liked it because it was one of those kind of stories, or that it felt too kind of derivative of all those other kind of stories. And I'd be like, oh, it's just another one of these sort of, Island, Handmaid's Tale ripoff kind of things where they took that formula and then they just plugged the thing in there. And I felt like the acting and the whole tone was like way too like serious and dramatic, and it was just like, obviously things are going to be serious and dramatic, but it felt to me like it was just poured on like heavy syrup on top of it, especially the very beginning. It was just like so like intense and serious and dramatic, and it felt like it was a little bit too much, and it kind of turned me off in the beginning. But as the show went on, I got more intrigued, and like I wanted to know what was going on and what was behind. And when the dude finds the hard drive, and I was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna start unraveling, and this is gonna be a murder mystery, of lack of a better term for it. And so by the time it got to the end, I was like, okay, like I'm kind of on board to like see what happens, but I didn't like I liked the Rashida Jones character, and that was the only one that I really kind of liked it. I don't know, like the sheriff character. He's like, something about him just isn't very interesting, and maybe it's because like there wasn't any of the sort of humor in the show that make the characters kind of likable, where like even you figure in this like dark dystopian world, there's going to be people that want to make jokes and have fun, and like there was the whole Freedom Day thing, but that was kind of very propaganda-y, over the top kind of stuff, where I was like, where are the people who are just like enjoying everyday life, even though they're in this silo that's kind of bleak and depressing? And so, yeah, kind of like I feel myself like there's so much of it that I liked, and then there's some stuff that was like really kind of a turn off to me as far as it goes. And so it's hard for me to like pin down where I'm at, where I end up feeling at the end of the day on the show. But overall, I liked it, I guess.
Pretty close to me right there, Scott Baker. And I think you mentioned that Ryan wouldn't like it because of the humor, and it's funny. And then you just kind of mentioned it, that I think you're talking about yourself, because you were crying about no humor right there, is what I just heard. But I did have a moment about midway through, just like a fleeting thought that was like, oh, there's no humor in this. Like almost like you subconsciously expect even serious dramas to have banter, or have a silly moment, or have a cat knock over a glass, on their lap. Like you don't even really realize you're expecting, but I felt it was missing. I felt some kind of lightness, was missing. But the overall impression I got was, at first, I was very thumbs downy on it. At first, I was just like, by the time the theme song came in, and I was like, oh my God, this theme song intro is boring. The show is boring. I don't know. They should have given us a better beginning to explain what's going on in there. And obviously not give away the mystery, but just maybe a a 1 minute narration, a little bit more than just the words that he said, oh, we don't know why we're here. Give us a little bit more to understand, because at first you just don't really know. And so therefore it's not very interesting. You got to build up the mystery, not start with the mystery. Give us something to start with, and then we can sink our teeth into the mystery. So I found it to be very boring and, tough to watch at first, but then it did progressively get better and better. And I found myself, by the end of it, I was affected by it. I felt a little bit of emotional investment in it. And I felt my mood had been affected by the show, and it kind of lingered within me. So that's a really strong ending, I would say, even though mentally I would not say was, a strong ending. But clearly, if it affected me, that they struck a chord in some way. So overall, it was pretty good somehow, against my better judgment. I want to poop on it, but what do you got, Muhammad?
Can you move your head? I was curious, is the sheriff on your picture? On the picture behind you?
I think, yeah.
Oh yeah, there he is. There. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious because it's interesting. It's interesting that the main character for the show, who's like the big head behind you there, doesn't show up to the very, very end. Is barely in it, right? So it's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, who was she even in the show?
She was at the very end. They introduced like an engineer, right?
Oh, that's okay. That's her. Yeah, I didn't even. Yeah, she's in it like this much of the show. And she's all like sweaty, and there's all this other stuff going. I didn't realize. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I love how when Ryan's head is perfectly aligned, it looks like he's got this big ear. He's got like an extra ear hanging out. Yeah. But yeah, and I was saying that there was like looking back now, there was one moment of comedy in it where like they're kind of doing the hanky panky in his
exactly
office.
The one moment. Yep.
Yeah, and it was like okay, and it was not. I felt like there could have been like the original Matrix movie. What's a Cypher? Is that the character?
Yeah.
The Joey Pantoliano character, like he's the kind of character that's sort of like this comic relief, this like quirky kind of character who like says offbeat things. And
was that the guy that's like, see, you just see a bunch of green lines, but to me, I'm seeing a blonde or a whatever he's saying.
Yeah. And he's like, I don't care if this is real steak or not, it tastes delicious. Like that kind of character. Like I feel like it was missing those kind of like quirky characters that like liven up a world. Yeah,
because as you mentioned,
George was kind of a little bit in that direction.
Who's George?
The computer geek guy with the drive.
Yeah, he's a little lighter. But as you mentioned,
and then he ended up on a slab. So
yeah, did he? But then the next guy looked a lot like him. I was like, wait, is that him in disguise with the long hair?
No, he's dead.
Yeah, he's dead. Well, now I forgot what I was going to say because I got stuck on George. What was it that you said right before that, Scott?
Oh, about like the kind of comic relief character and the quirky characters in the world.
Oh yeah, when you were originally given your what you actually got, you mentioned that there should still be quirky characters and fun characters and joking, because these people were not just relegated to this silo 2 weeks ago. This is all they know. This is their life. Humans are such
years.
Yeah, humans are such that they're going to just adapt. If that's all they know, they're not going to be depressed, all of them. They're going to be still silly ones. They're still going to have birthday parties. They're still going to get drunk or whatever they do. You know what I mean? Like if they had just gotten relegated to that place 2 months ago, then sure, they might all just be like bummed because they know what things were like. They've been through stuff. This is life. This is all they know. And so that made a little bit of sense of like, how can they not know what computers do? How can they not do this? I think some people might have a few questions, but got to remember, again, if this is all they know, they don't really know what technology's out there. And can I just make a couple predictions here? I predict, here's a few. Number one, the helmet is what kills them. They got some kind of poison in the helmet or something like that. That much seems obvious. Maybe I'm wrong, but that
the
seems
whole thing
obvious.
That didn't make sense. It was like, well, why did they like strap up in this suit? Because outside is so toxic,
and it doesn't work.
Then they go out.
Clearly, it doesn't work. What's the point?
Do anything.
Yeah, and the other thing is, why do they go clean if they're free to go? Why don't, if they say, I want to go.
I think that's an intentional mystery there. Right, because they say somehow it's this thing that everybody's agreed to do this for the good of society. But that's intentionally weird.
Maybe it's because when they're dying, they have like this sickness to where like they're like, oh my God, it's so big and beautiful outside. These people need to see how great it is, and so they wipe it off and clean it. But I do believe that it is fine outside.
And or even if it's the whole. Sorry, it's like if it's a whole VFX sort of thing where the outside isn't really what they see, then her going off and dying is not really her going off and dying. That she like walked up over the hill and they just made it look like they used a CG character to make it look like she died or something.
Totally. That's one of the two options. It's either that, or it's just that, they have their helmet. The helmet kills them. And that they, or whatever's in there, so they think they're wearing this protective thing, but actually it's fine outside, and this thing is what is killing them. But Muhammad's raising his eyebrows about this, clearly showing us that he has seen the entire first season. Otherwise, he'd be jumping in, going like, that's a good
keeping my mouth shut.
Let's see if our predictions are right based on Muhammad's expressions. Okay. So
I can tell you the predictions. Well, actually, I don't want to spoil it. I don't want you guys to check it out. I'll just say that you will have surprises. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to go one by one on it, but you will have surprises.
You will have surprises if you think I'm going to watch the second episode and find out Dr. Noor.
I think we're getting ahead of ourselves, right?
Yeah, we'll see though. We'll see. Was that a red herring kind of? Anyway. Muhammad, who's your favorite character in this first episode?
In the first episode, it would be Allison Alley. I thought she was very well played, and she's very sympathetic. And again, I'm biased because I liked Parks and Rec, although she was not the most interesting character by far in Parks and Rec. But relative to the others, Sheriff was okay. Bernard was kind of interesting. I was very curious about him, the older, not the one who with the drive, but the one who is basically chastising her. I was curious about him. George was fine, but then he got killed off. But I guess on the other hand, like Allie also got killed off. So, but for the first episode, I'd probably say her. There's definitely ones I like later.
Ooh, what about you, Scott Baker?
Yeah. I think she was the only sort of interesting character in there that we got to see more than one dimension to. I felt like the sheriff's character even was kind of like, maybe towards the end, but I don't know, just like. I don't know if it was the acting or the writing on his character. I felt like there just was something missing about his character that kind of needed a little bit more. Yeah, and
everything was happening to him instead of him. Doing something. Whereas she,
I love how they have Tim Robbins on the poster, and he walks in, delivers one line, and then walks out. Like, I guess he's technically. I'm assuming he's a bigger part of the show as the show goes on, more episodes. But yeah, he like in the opening episode, he just kind of comes in and says one line and then walks away. The old lady was kind of neat. She was sort of that like stereotypical kind of.
Which old lady?
Yeah,
the mayor or the conspiracist lady?
Yeah, the conspiracist lady. She's sort of, I don't remember what her character's name was. But yeah, she's that sort of character that's like got the inside knowledge and is older because she's like, been around longer. Yeah, the Oracle. Very much.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll tell y'all. Yeah, my favorite is probably Allie, I guess, too. There are other characters that I may have liked more, but I didn't see enough of to really give a fair assessment. But I'll tell you what I thought that this show did well, which is that the characters were introduced well. It was very clear who the characters were, both in role and functionality and personality type. So it wasn't one of those shows that just throws a million characters at you and you don't know who's who. We get it. We know exactly who everybody is and what they do, and we're going to learn more about them. The story, we know what the story is. We get it, even if we don't know kind of where the story comes from as much. And but it did a very good job, I thought, of just introducing characters one by one and building things up. And it had a very good through line. I just, again, thought that the first 15 minutes is where the work needed to be done, where they kind of, and I know they're thinking, no, it's on purpose. They don't tell you anything for mystery, but you still got to give us something to work with. And it's clearly suffers from a pre-existing franchise. Clearly, it's got to be a book or a book series, because those are always the most patient. Those are always the ones that have a built-in fan base. So they know that they don't have to hang on to your attention as much, because there are people that are going to watch it no matter what, because they read and liked the books.
Interesting. I thought maybe that was why they used Rashida Jones. Like, well, let's use this familiar person to get people to watch, and then hopefully they'll get hooked, and then they can watch the rest of the show, and we can just throw.
Yeah,
because we never see her again after this episode. Like, that's it.
Hey, spoiler!
That's a trivial spoiler, though. I mean, it's pretty obvious because she's gone.
Is it
gone in whatever sense?
What about if her husband goes outside and sees her and flips her over, and you can see her, dead?
Not answering if that happens or not.
I saw a credit in there that was like based on Silo by blah 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 blah. So it is based on it is based on a book or some sort of pre-existing property or whatever. But yeah, I thought it did do a good job of sort of like world building and slowly doling out the information about what's going on without feeling like it's very expositional, like, hey, this is why we're all here and this is what's happening. They didn't they did a good job of like slowly revealing that information without it feeling awkward. And the whole having the whole Freedom Day as the
explanation. That was great.
As a way to sort of like, okay, here's all this backstory and stuff we want you to know, and like this is a good way to do all that and to like get across the mood and the tone of the world and everything like that.
I loved well, I mean, I didn't like the scene itself, but I thought it was very like shocking in a good way. The fact she cut herself and found that birth control thing still inside her. I was like, whoa, that's like intense in multiple respects.
Yeah, that was like, I'm no physician, but first of all, how are you going to know exactly where it is? Secondly, you're going to be digging around a lot of guts, and you're not just going to be losing skin blood. Like, it's not just a cut. You probably cut up some organs in there, like, so
I mean, she's going outside anyway.
I feel like that could have been fatal, but what do we know?
Yeah, it was weird. It was up here and
because someone might say, well, maybe it was just superficial. You just slice it and pull it out. But if it were superficial, then she would have known it was there or not there. Anyway, that's a little ticky tacky there for me. Oh, Mohammed, you looked down at your notes. I thought you had a point you were going to throw at us.
No, I mean, I can't. But I was just looking at it. There are a lot of little seeds throughout there. Like some things which seem kind of trivial throughout the whole episode. We're like, oh, that's actually important. Like the 18 on the hard drive. But you wouldn't think anything of that. But like that actually is important. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things like that throughout there. Like, oh, that's why it was so much more enjoyable seeing it the second time as opposed to the first. First, I watched it and it was like, I was about where you guys were like, it was all right. It was a little confusing, not sure where it's going, stuff like that. But then, like, going through the whole thing and then coming back, like, oh, this actually was all the way from the first episode. That was.
Yeah. I feel like there's stuff going on later. With, like, the people with the backpacks going up and down. Like, they keep showing the people with the backpacks, and they don't really say why are the people like going up and down with these big funky backpacks. Like,
I thought they were just nerds.
There's gonna, yeah. So
I think they're called porters. They're literally just like delivery people, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. But it seemed like there was something
the
going
Amazon
on.
Truck.
yeah. I feel like there was something going on with them that didn't even get mentioned, and it just kept showing them. And I was like, oh, it's interesting. Like, just part of the world, these like big funky backpacks. I was like wondering if that's gonna play a role later on in the show.
Yeah, and it seems like this dystopian future. Clearly, they're trying to set up a world in which people that the free thinkers or the rebels, the rebellious people, they don't want them to mate. They want, for lack of a better word, just a society of sheep, a society of nice people, a society of people that don't want to break the mold, that don't want to break the rules. They also seem to not want people talking too much. Like, it seems like there's quite a lack of elevators or anything like that. Because elevators, what do you do in an elevator if you're going up 50 floors? You might talk, you might congregate, you might bump into a friend. But if it's just all stairs, then everybody's just kind of going up and down. And if you're going up 50 or 60 or 70 flights, maybe you don't, you're not going to stop and talk to somebody. It just felt like it was set up to where they want to control when you guys talk. Okay, you guys can have the meal at the cafeteria during mealtime. You guys can congregate for Freedom Day when it's time. You guys need a ticket and a lottery in order to watch the person outside. So they really want to control everything that's going on, and control the kind of population that they control.
Yeah.
Kind of like France. Just kidding.
France.
Anyway, speaking of controlling things, you guys want to control the conversation and talk about Scott Baker for a minute?
Ooh, yes.
I think that's really fun. Look,
some cool stuff.
Scott, we've known each other for a long time. You're super talented, but you're also very skilled. You've learned a lot of skills along the way, writing, directing, producing, a lot of camera work. You're working on a project, or you've got a project called The Long, Slow Death of a 30-something. Can you please tell us about that?
Yeah, it's a dark comedy ish that my very good friend Larry Longstreth is writing, or has written and directing, and he's also the lead actor in. And it's a sequel to a film that you can watch called Long Slow Death of a 20-something that he made a little over 10 years ago.
How does that work? Just kidding.
Yeah. And
it's a really long, slow death.
Yeah. Well, it's a metaphorical death, right? And so it's the first one is a sort of like Clerks kind of comedy. A bunch of friends get together, and it's a very, very low budget film, like zero budget kind of film he made with his friends out in Ohio a long time ago, and that's where he grew up. And it's about being in the end of your 20s, and you're trying to find your place in the world, and everybody's telling you who you got to be and what you got to do, and growing up in conservative middle America and feeling like you don't quite fit in, and it's all these kind of themes, but around a bunch of friends who like superheroes and Dungeons and Dragons and role playing and all this kind of geek nerd culture kind of stuff. So there's that film that he made, and there's a little cliffhanger at the end of that film. I don't want to spoil it, but there's a cliffhanger kind of at the end of that film, and now we're fast forwarded 10 years later, and it's The Long Slow Death of a 30-something, and we're picking up all these characters, mostly the one main character, Ben, that's 10 years later. He's at the end of his 30s, and other things are happening in his life, and he's still on this kind of quest to figure out who he is and what his place is in the world. But all the circumstances in his life has changed, and so now maybe he's figured some of the stuff out, but he's still trying to figure these things out in this comedy drama sort of world. And it takes most of the movie takes place in Ohio, but some of it takes place in Los Angeles, and we're actually getting ready to go down to Mexico and shoot some scenes of the film that happened in Mexico, and I'm the cinematographer on the film, and it's been this great adventure that we've been shooting for a little over a year off and on this project, because this is a lower budget project as well, but we definitely have a lot more resources and things than he had in his first film. And it's not to like detract from the first film, but like he admits it's one of these things where it was like his first sort of big feature film outing that, suffered in the production value category. And so now we're us living in Los Angeles, and, we've got access to gear and other people with skills, and we can bring all these things together and like up the production value and make like a really solid film. And I'm super happy with like where the film is at right now. We've shot probably like 75% of it or something like that. So we've just got a little bit more due, and hoping that it'll be completed next year. So it's just something to keep an eye out for. If you have a chance to watch Long Slow Death of a 20-something, it's available. I'm not sure where, on streaming or something. I'm sure you can find it. Larry's like, don't watch Long Slow Death of a 20-something until this one comes out, and so you can just watch them together. But if you want to watch it, I feel go ahead and find it. I didn't have anything to do with the first film. I hadn't even met Larry at the time. But yeah, we're super excited about the film, and it's something that like me as a director, coming on board the project just as the cinematographer. It's like I'm not just a cinematographer on the film. Larry's one of my closest friends, and so we're always like talking about stuff on the script, and we're on set, and we're kind of going back and forth on different things. There it is. Yes.
You can get it on Amazon Prime.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. So yeah. So we're always going back and forth on stuff, and it's one of these things where I feel really emotionally invested in the project that I don't always get that opportunity when I'm on the camera side of things. It's usually like, okay, this is what the director wants, and we're just going to execute this thing. And so it's been this sort of collaborative process where I feel so much more, like I said, emotionally invested in the project, and super excited to bring it to the world. And it's outside of what I normally do as far as like sci-fi, horror, fantasy kind of stuff. Even though there's like bits of it, that's Larry there in the middle,
and that's Hollywood Superman right there.
That is.
Yeah, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so we actually, and in this new one, we have Jen Van Deen, formerly Jen Wanger, who used to be the Wonder Woman on Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh, no way.
Larry met her years ago, and we all became friends. And she's super, super hilarious actress. And she doesn't do the Wonder Woman thing anymore on Hollywood Boulevard, but she's a fantastic actress, super hilarious, and she's in this that plays this great character where I don't want to give too much away, but people are in their late 30s and everybody's kind of got baby fever, like this, like especially the women, their like biological clock is ticking, and it's like, oh, you got to give me a baby kind of stuff is happening in this movie, and it's hilarious. So like some of the scenes that we shot for that were just like it was one of those things where you're like shooting it and you're trying not to laugh while you're like holding the camera watching the scene, because her character and some of it's just so over the top kind of stuff that it's fun to do. So.
Well, that's really cool. So anybody that wants to see it right now, check it out on Amazon Prime. Anybody that wants to do what Scott Baker demands, which is just hold off, bookmark it, wait till this second one comes out, and then watch them together. It's going to be a lot of fun. And where can people find you online, by the way, Scott Baker?
I'm most active on Instagram at Mr. Scotty Baker. Occasionally on Twitter. Also Mr. Scotty Baker, and the Facebook. But yeah, I don't know. So mostly Instagram is where I'm posting stuff,
Lots of cool
check
stuff.
Out my OnlyFans. No,
he posts a lot of pictures of his rig in crazy places. So check that out. He's always traveling around, having a blast. All right, Muhammad's getting the karate chop ready, so there's nothing else to do but to go to the terrible twos.
The bottom line. Fine on the bottom.
The terrible twos.
The bottom twos.
That's what it is.
The terrible line.
That bottom twos. All right. Final two questions of the show. Two most important questions. Question number one is, Dr. Muhammad Noor, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this first episode of Silo, entitled Freedom Days?
It's interesting. If you go when I first watched it, it'd probably be around a 7.5. If you go when I watched it this time, it'd be closer to a 9. I'm kind of split difference and say 8.3. But I enjoyed it radically more this time than the previous time, which I still enjoyed it the first time, but I enjoyed it much more this time, seeing where things were going and being able to understand what all the seeds were that were planted, because I've seen the beautiful fruits come from them.
Aw. What about you, Scott Baker? Planting seeds, beautiful fruits. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with old Muhammad that gave it a 7.5. Yeah, so maybe if I watch it again, I'll be on track with new Muhammad. But yeah, I feel like for the criticisms I gave it earlier, but with the feeling that like it got better as the episode went, and that there was potential for enjoyment in later episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So 7.5? Okay.
Yeah.
Mohammed, you said 8.3?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So I'm kind of in between those. I went with a 7.8. Kind of was going around 7.5, 7.8. It definitely climbed towards the end. Because at first it was destined for a very low mark, but I stuck with it because I have to. And yeah, like I said, it ended, when the show ended, my mind was not done thinking about the show, which is always a good sign, I think. So that's question number one. But question number two is the one that Apple TV wants to hear the most, which is, for the purposes of this podcast, we all had to watch the first episode of Silo, but now that the podcast is over and we're free to move about the internet, would you, of your own volition, click next episode and watch the second episode?
I'll give two answers to that. Obviously, the short answer was yes. I mean, I did. I've seen the whole thing. But what's funny, coming back to your Apple TV comment, I had gotten 1 month of Apple TV and canceled it. Apple TV is one of the ones I don't keep all the time. And when it ended, they'd only aired up through episode 7 or 8. And I was kind of like, and I was like, you know what? I bet at some point in time, I'm going to have to get Apple TV again. I'll see those last few episodes, which thankfully for this show, we had a couple of Apple TV things come up.
Yep.
So I just actually watched the most recent, or the last few episodes, just in the past couple of weeks. So thank you, Ryan.
You know what we should do? We should have some months that aren't just like horror month or Saturday morning cartoon month, but they should just be a streaming service month, like Apple month and
Apple
Netflix month and Paramount Plus month. But we'll see if we end up doing that. Scott Baker, would you, of your own volition, watch the second episode?
Yeah, I think the episode left me with enough of a cliffhanger, kind of like what's going to happen next. Like I want to know what the mystery is. Okay, if like you were going deep into like what does Apple TV want to know, like is this show enough on its own make me want to subscribe to Apple TV or pay the whatever it is a month for Apple TV? It's like I feel like I'm on the line there. Like, is this like I get Paramount Plus just for Star Trek. Like, I don't care what else was on Paramount Plus. Oh, there's a new Star Trek show coming out. I guess I got to get Paramount Plus, or Disney for Mandalorian or whatever. I don't know that I've watched anything on Disney other than Star Wars related content. But like, is this show going to be like? This is the show that's going to get me to subscribe to Apple TV? I don't know. But if I've already got Apple TV, am I going to watch the next episode? Yeah, I want to know what happens, and I'm kind of hooked. And you got me, curious to like, what is this mystery that I'll continue to watch it.
Mm-hmm. When Muhammad said Ahsoka, it just made me think like, I want to watch that show. So if somebody asked me if I liked it, I could be like, Ahsoka.
Okay. So and that'll probably be your reaction after you watch the show.
Scary.
No comment.
So look, yes, I would watch the second episode because, as Scott Baker said, he's my blood brother in this episode, it seems. They built up enough of a mystery to where I'm thinking, and I hate when shows do this because I have a feeling I'm going to be wrong again. They set up this mystery to where you think, boy, I really want to know what's outside. So I've got to watch the second episode, and they'll tell me right away because the guy's just about to go outside. So if I just click next episode, in 5 minutes, I'm going to get that answer, and I'm going to I can sleep. I'll be able to know I'm done. In fact, I almost did it last night when I watched this. I almost was like, I just want to watch the first few minutes of episode 2 to get the answer to the mystery. However, I do worry that this is one of those shows that says, haha, gotcha. And then you watch the beginning of that second episode and it's like, you don't get that answer, but you get another little thing and you get, and they're like, look it over here, look it over here.
Pretty much true.
And then by episode 7, you're like, I still don't know what's outside. What the is going on? Why am I still watching this show? That's my worry. So I think that I would
know by the end of the season. I'll tell you that. Before the end of the
that's
season.
good. At least it's not lost where like however many seasons in, you're like, okay, the show ended and we still really don't know
and
what the whole thing was about.
Answers 1 out of 3 mysteries. 2 out of 3, they're just like, oh, what we did. Don't I don't know. Don't worry about that. It was just sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. And you're like, no, that's not how it works here. Anyway, it's 3 yeses. You got us, Apple. You did it. So everybody, thanks for watching. Please make sure if you'd like us to review a show, just make that suggestion in the comments below, as well as where we can watch it. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating and a nice review if you're listening in. And if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications, and leave some comments. Tell us what you think of Silo. Did we successfully convince you to watch it? Let us know. What I'm trying to say is this podcast was fun.
This podcast was not trapped in a silo.
This podcast is about over.
Also true. Also true. And now we will start the second of 4 chapters of this podcast.
All right. Grab this one.
That's it, everybody. Thanks so much. Everybody have fun. It's been a lot of fun. We appreciate y'all. Remember what Mr. Michael Kenyon Rosenberg likes to say.
Don't forget to be an organ donor. And don't forget to watch the first of things.
All right. Freeze frame like you're the cleaner. We're great cleaners.
That shitty smile and pretend that